You're getting ready for episode 3 this morning. 66. There are 67 chapters in this book and an epilogue. So we're getting to the end. Take a drink. Welcome to Bite at a Time Books, where we read you your favorite classics one bite at a time. My name is Bree Carlisle, and I love to read, and wanted to share my passion with listeners like you. All of the links for our show are in the show notes. Today we will be continuing The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. Oops. Swipe from bottom. There we go.
Dumas.
Chapter 66, Execution. It was near midnight. The moon, lessened by its decline and reddened by the last traces of the storm, arose behind the little town of Musketeers, which showed against its pale light.
Near midnight.
Midnight, where's midnight? Redo.
Near midnight.
The moon, lessened by its decline and reddened by the last traces of the storm, arose behind the little town of Musketeers, which showed against its pale light the dark outline of its houses and the skeleton of its high belfry.
I belfry.
In front of them, the Lys rolled
I belfry.
In front of them, the Lys rolled its waters like a river of molten tin, while on the other side was a black mass of trees, profiled on a stormy sky, invaded by large coppery clouds which created a sort of twilight amid the night. On the left was an old abandoned mill, with its motionless wings, from the ruins of which an owl threw out its shrill, periodical, and monotonous cry. On the right and on the left of the road, which the dismal procession pursued, appeared a few low, stunted trees, which looked like deformed dwarfs crouching down to watch men traveling at this sinister hour. From time to time, a broad sheet of lightning opened the horizon in its whole width, darted like a serpent over the black mass of trees, and like a terrible scimitar divided the heavens and the waters into two parts. Not a breath of wind now disturbed the heavy atmosphere. A death-like silence oppressed all nature. The soil was humid and glittering with the rain which had recently fallen, and the refreshed herbs sent forth their perfume with additional energy. Two lackeys dragged my lady, whom each held by one arm. The executioner walked behind them, and Lord de Winter, D'Artagnan, Porthos, and Aramis walked behind the executioner. Planchet and Bazin came last. The two lackeys conducted my lady to the bank of the river. Her mouth was mute, but her eyes spoke with their inexpressible eloquence, supplicating by turns each of those on whom she looked. Being a few paces in advance, she whispered to the lackeys, 1,000 pistoles to each of you if you will assist my escape. But if you deliver me up to your masters, I have near at hand avengers, who will make you pay dearly for my death. Who will make you pay dearly for my death. Grimaud hesitated. Mousqueton trembled in all his members. Athos, who heard my lady's voice, came sharply up. Lord de Winter did the same. Change these lackeys, said he. She has spoken to them. They are no longer sure. Planchet and Bazin were called, and took the places of Grimaud and Mousqueton. On the bank of the river, the executioner approached my lady and bound her hands and feet. Then she broke the silence to cry out, "You are cowards, miserable assassins, 10 men combined to murder one woman. Beware, if I am not saved, I shall be avenged." "You are not a woman," said Athos coldly and sternly. "You do not belong to the human species. You are a demon escaped from hell, whither we send you back again." "Ah, you virtuous men," said my lady, "please to remember that he who shall touch..."
"You back again."
"Ah, you virtuous men," said my lady, please to remember that he who shall touch a hair of my head is himself an assassin.
An assassin.
The executioner may kill without being on that account an assassin, said the man in the red cloak, rapping upon his immense sword.
Immense sword.
This is the last judge, that is all. Musketeers, as they are neighbors, the Germans.
The Germans.
And as he bound her while saying these words, my lady uttered 2 or 3 savage cries, which produced a strange and melancholy effect in flying away into the night, and losing themselves in the depths of the woods.
The woods.
If I am guilty, if I have committed the crimes you accuse me of, shrieked my lady, take me before a tribunal. You are not judges, you cannot condemn me.
Not condemn me.
I offered you Tyburn, said Lord de Winter. Why did you not accept it?
Not accept it.
Because I am not willing to die, cried my lady, struggling. Because I am too young to die.
Young to die.
The woman you poisoned at Bethune was still younger than you, madame, and yet she is dead, said D'Artagnan.
Said D'Artagnan.
I will enter a cloister. I will become a nun, said my lady. You were in a cloister, said the executioner, and you left to ruin my brother.
Ruin my brother.
My lady uttered a cry of terror and sank upon her knees. The executioner took her up in his arms and was carrying her toward the boat.
Toward the boat.
Oh, my God, cried she. My God, are you going to drown me?
To drown me?
These cries had something so heart-rending in them that Monsieur d'Artagnan, who had been at first the most eager in pursuit of my lady, sat down on the stump of a tree and hung his head.
Hung his head.
Covering his ears with the palms of his hands, and yet notwithstanding, he could still hear her cry and threaten.
And threaten.
D'Artagnan was the youngest of all these men. His heart failed him.
Heart failed him.
Oh, I cannot behold this frightful spectacle, said he. I cannot consent that this woman should die thus.
Die thus.
My lady heard these few words and caught at a shadow of hope.
Shadow of hope.
D'Artagnan, D'Artagnan, cried she, remember that I loved you. The young man rose and took a step toward her.
Step toward her.
But Athos rose likewise and drew his...
Step toward her.
But Athos rose likewise, drew his sword, and placed himself in the way.
Self in the way.
If you take one step further, D'Artagnan, said he, we shall cross swords together.
It's together.
D'Artagnan sank on his knees and prayed.
And prayed.
Come, continued Athos, executioner, do your duty.
Do your duty.
Willingly, monseigneur, said the executioner, for as I am a good Catholic, I firmly believe I am acting justly in performing my functions on this woman.
On this woman.
That's well. Athos made a step toward my lady.
Toward my lady.
I pardon you, said he, the ill you have done me.
Have done me.
I pardon you for my blasted future, my lost honor, my defiled love, and my salvation forever compromised by the despair into which you have cast me. Die in peace.
In peace.
Lord de Winter advanced in his turn.
In his turn.
I pardon you, said he, for the poisoning of my brother and the assassination of his grace, Lord Buckingham.
Buckingham.
I pardon you for the death of poor Felton. I pardon you for the attempts upon my own person. Die in peace.
In peace.
And I, said Monsieur d'Artagnan, pardon me, madame, for having by a trick unworthy of a gentleman provoked your anger.
Provoked your anger.
And I, in exchange, pardon you the murder of my poor love and your cruel vengeance against me. I pardon you, and I weep for you. Die in peace.
In peace.
I am lost, murmured my lady in English. I must die.
Must die.
Then she arose of herself and cast around her one of those piercing looks which seemed to dart from an eye of flame.
Eye of flame.
She saw nothing. She listened, and she heard nothing. Where am I to die, said she.
Said she.
On the other bank, replied the executioner.
Executioner.
Then he placed her in the boat, and as he was going to set foot in it himself, Athos handed him a sum of silver.
Sum of silver.
Here, said he, is the price of the execution, that it may be plain we act as judges.
As judges.
"That is correct," said the executioner, "and now in her turn, let this woman see that I am not fulfilling my trade, but my debt."
My debt.
And he threw the money into the river.
Into the river.
The boat moved off toward the left-hand shore of the Lys. Bearing the guilty woman and the executioner, all the others remained on the right-hand bank where they fell on their knees.
On their knees.
The boat glided along the ferry rope under the shadow of a pale cloud which hung over the water at that moment.
At that moment.
The troop of friends saw it gain the opposite bank. The figures were defined like black shadows on the red-tinted horizon.
Horizon.
My lady, during the passage, had contrived to untie the cord which fastened her feet.
Her feet.
On coming near the bank, she jumped lightly on shore and took to flight, but the soil was moist. On reaching the top of the bank, she slipped and fell upon her knees.
Her knees.
She was struck, no doubt, with a superstitious idea. She conceived that heaven denied its aid, and she remained in the attitude in which she had fallen, her head drooping and her hands clasped. Then they saw from the other bank the executioner raise both his arms slowly. A moonbeam fell upon the blade of the large sword. The two arms fell with a sudden force. They heard the hissing of the scimitar and the cry of the victim. Then a truncated mass sat beneath the blow. The executioner then took off his red cloak, spread it upon the ground, laid the body in it, threw in the head, tied all up by the four corners, lifted it on his back, and entered the boat again. In the middle of the stream, he stopped the boat, and suspending his burden over the water, cried in a loud voice, "Let the justice of God be done." And he let the corpse drop into the depths of the waters which closed over it. 3 days afterward, the four musketeers were in Paris. They had not exceeded their leave of absence, and that same evening they went to pay their customary visit to Monsieur de Treville. "Well, gentlemen," said the brave captain, "I hope you have been well amused during your excursion." "Prodigiously," replied Athos, in the name of himself and his comrades. Next chapter's longer. Might do it later today, might do it tomorrow. We'll see.
Comrades.
Thank you for joining Bite at a Time Books today, while we read a bite of one of your favorite classics. All of the links for our show are in the show notes. We are part of the Bite at a Time Books Productions Network. If you ever wondered what inspired your favorite classic novelists to write their stories, what was happening in their lives or the world at the time, check out Bite at a Time Books Behind the Story, Tuesdays wherever you listen to podcasts. Again, my name is Bree Carlisle, and I hope you come back tomorrow while we take the next bite of the Three Musketeers. The last bite. Oop. Yep, no, it was a 9-minute chapter. All right, that's done. Thanks, guys.